example of that, right? And whoever comes here, they are going to be so lucky to get this house. And I doubt they will ever move, you know.
No, this is it. I can believe it. I think it's important that they've heard it. You know, they're not on this call, and I know you've been talking to them, but you've articulated so well. I just want to write it up. Obviously, I'll send it to you first, but so they've heard it, and that will inform them. They're very, you know, as you know, they're very bright, and they care so much about properties and clients. But that's why I want them to hear it.
Yeah, we had Foxtons crying earlier today when I told them that we've gone with a different agent, and I think they probably thought, well, who must be some enormous agent. We thought, nope, we've gone with who we believe are going to do the best job. They're really passionate, and yeah, it's really great.
And actually, another thing you said earlier, just sort of to the side, I'm actually doing a piece at the moment, a piece of writing for the CEO of a huge investment company, and it's one of the most inspiring and interesting things and people I've ever worked with and written about. And that person's entire professional life has been, especially at this organisation, so the last 20 years, has been all about not rewriting the rules, but rewriting the expectations and the standards of investment banking, and you know, the world in which you are going to retire and live off your investments being worth being in, you know, the long-sighted view of the world that multi-trillion-dollar funds can contribute to and change. And it's absolutely awesome stuff. And I've known for many, many years that if you want to find creative people with really great ideas, then you go into all sorts of industries, including banking, investment, the sciences. It's not that you find that in the arts and the humanities, although it's there as well. And I you know, I work for one chap who's a dear friend now. He runs a consultancy, and he's probably the most creative person I know, and he just runs consultancy about customer-led business. But that's, you know, I can tell that you are contributing and creative. It's how your mind works, isn't it? It's not about.
It is, yeah. You're absolutely right. And we're very patient-centric. That's our sort of ethos. And you know, if you ever had the chance to, well, you don't need to, but on our website, we've really kind of articulated a lot of how we work for the patients and why we do that, and what type of companies. We're always looking for innovation. We're always looking for, in fact, you know, one of our sons, both our sons, we gave them 3 names each. The first name for both of them was to inform them of their heritage, which in our case is Persian, Indian, Pakistani origin. So we wanted them to understand that this is your heritage, but we are second generation. Our parents and grandparents are here in the UK, and they're third generation British. So, you know, to hold on to that, to understand that it's okay to feel European more than anything else, or British European. And so we gave them a European name as a second name. And then as the third name, we gave them a Chinese name because we felt that probably in 20 years' time, they're going to be looking for jobs in China. Who knows, right? But we were thinking about the impact of the sort of global and globalization. And, you know, it has had a bit of a setback recently. But actually, when you really think about the way that the world now moves and operates, you can be anywhere, working from anywhere, and, you know, you can still do what you're doing. And I think it's really great times for a lot of people. And people need to upskill, right? People need to keep their skill set up to date and relevant to what's needed and what's required. So we're all about that. And, you know, we were very fortunate, almost as soon as we'd moved into the house, we got busy with a piece of work that we did for the US government. And the US government loved it so much so that they invited us over to the Obama inauguration. And we were just jetted about in these black Cadillacs and, to every single ball that was going on. We just thought, have they got the wrong, we were like, have they got the wrong people? Have they got the wrong couple? Because we're not that important, but they treated
quite important work, because Ali and Ali principally wrote a document which landed on the Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's desk. And it was about, in the credit crunch, where do we put the money? And we were making the argument that yes, half of all employees in America are SMEs, in small businesses. But if you're going to create an investment opportunity in the midst of, the ashes around you for the credit crunch financially, then it has to be a phoenix led by the sciences. And so we made the point that high tech, science and technology, but life sciences particularly, is such a fantastic industry to invest into. And we're making the point that, the car industry, they were supporting all the big car companies for a handful of jobs, for a handful of potential revenues, when the real value was in the vision of life sciences. And we actually repeated that exercise because in the COVID-19 situation, we were intricately involved in conversations with Treasury, multiple governments, UK government, major universities, Oxford University with their vaccine, Glaxo, Astra, all the pharma companies, because we were basically the sounding board and kind of pitching to them what we thought from our experience in pandemics previously that we worked on, what we thought the vulnerabilities were and where were the investments. And because we have this unique insight into both science and finance, we could build that kind of bridge to show people and organizations. We talked to the World Economic Forum as well. And why that's important is because this house has enveloped, two of those crises in the world, the credit crunch and COVID. And in both those scenarios, you couldn't miss a beat here. There was such a hive of activity between Ali and I, with all the sort of creation going on in terms of what we were writing, the number crunching for modeling, the discussions we had with organizations globally. And so that's why those memories are very precious. But actually, this house has really been the steward of that level of innovation, and which we are actually now, we were already on the runway back then. We took off, and now we're going into sort of like cruise altitude with life sciences, because part of the reason we're moving is because we absolutely have the view that you don't look west, you look east as well. This is one world, and we all suffer the consequences. Forget about, cutting back on coal fire pollution, fire stations in the UK when they're churning them out in India and China still. So from that perspective, that may give you a bit more insight into actually what's really taken place in this house in the last 15 years as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we could, sorry, Elliot.
I was just going to say not just East, because of course Africa and being Africa-centric as well has been really key, because as we saw during the pandemic, that vaccine equity wasn't taking place. And then we predicted and wrote, we published a huge 141-page research report on COVID. And in that, we predicted that the next outbreak would come from South Africa, which it did, of course, with Omicron. And that was really because we could see that the African nations were being left behind. And, it was unnecessary for Canada to have 10 times the number of doses than the number of people needed, right? It was totally unnecessary, but that is what happens when things are not done equitably.
Do you think, is life sciences and this approach, does that offer the possibility of getting out of this cycle of aid, of, the West, or the first world giving aid? Because that seems to me, as a layperson without your knowledge, an enormous problem, that everything is still based on, giving aid and trying to help rather than being truly global. And I remember a few years ago I read a lot of books in sort of 2015-16 about the refugee situation, especially coming from Syria. I was commissioned to write a screenplay about that, about a refugee traveling from Syria to Sweden. But I read one particular brilliant book by a journalist called Patrick Kingsley called The New Odyssey. And he made the point in it that, in the West,